evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. We begin tonight with that big election sweep by Democrats, a party that had been left for dead, now suddenly showing a heartbeat. 1 year to the day after losing the presidential election to Donald Trump, a seismic loss that threw Democrats into a tailspin, they finally have something to celebrate.
I know you, New Jersey, and I love you. We chose our Commonwealth over chaos.
New York, tonight you have delivered a mandate for change.
So a good night for Democrats. They won their races and they won big. Republicans woke up this morning facing questions about their own immediate future, specifically next year's midterm elections, where Trump's agenda will be on the ballot, but not the president himself. The power of Congress hangs in the balance. So how much can we really read into these big wins last night, all in traditionally blue areas? Well, it depends on who you ask. Democrats are framing this as a referendum against President Trump. The man himself says his party lost because he wasn't on the ballot.
If you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And that was a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor. But I don't know about that, but I was honored that they said that.
Despite who or what's to blame, there is no question that voters did have one thing top of mind when they cast their ballots: the cost of living. In New York City, voters elected Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani to lead the nation's biggest city, the financial capital of the world, with an economy bigger than Canada's or Israel's. And while Republicans are calling Mamdani a communist, those cost of living issues that got him elected are the very same issues that Trump used to win the White House. In a lengthy post today, Vice President J.D. Vance acknowledged that many of the president's campaign promises have not yet happened. He wrote in part, quote, "The president has done a lot that has already paid off in lower interest rates and lower inflation. But we inherited a disaster from Joe Biden, and Rome wasn't built in a day. We're going to keep on working to make a decent life affordable in this country, and that's the metric by which we'll ultimately be judged in 2026 and beyond." Former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy went further, saying Republicans need to do more.
Our side needs to focus on affordability, make the American dream affordable, bring down costs, electric costs, grocery costs, healthcare costs, and housing costs, and lay out how we're going to do it.
And of course, this isn't just about lessons for Republicans. Democrats still don't have a clear leader or even a clear identity. Last night's wins reveal a party that is still divided. Will it lean far left, like Mamdani, or more moderate, like the new governors of New Jersey and Virginia, Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger? Let's get reaction now from NewsNation political editor Chris Starwalt, host of The Hill Sunday. Chris, just saw you last night here in New York. You're already back in D.C.
I know.
Listen, you say Republicans got an old-fashioned spanking, I think that's the quote, last night in these elections. But the question is, what does it mean going forward for President Trump?
Well, can I just say, listening to these Republicans talk about the cost of living and affordability is pretty wild, given what else is happening in Washington today, which is the Trump administration arguing vehemently in front of the Supreme Court of the United States that these tariffs must stay in place for the sake of the future of the country. The point of the tariffs is what? To remake the economy. And we're going to have pain. And what do we mean by pain? What did they mean when they said there was going to be pain? That's just higher prices. It's just making people pay more for stuff so that they can engineer an economy that they like. I watched 4 years ago Democrats fail to take any lessons, any useful lessons from the results of these races in New Jersey and Virginia, where the messages were clear. These messages are twice as clear. Glenn Youngkin pulled off an upset, won it by a little bit, and Jack Ciattarelli was closer in New Jersey. This was a kablooey, right? Cheryl in New Jersey and Sears in Virginia, they were not powerhouse candidates by any stretch of the imagination. These were not generational talents or something, and they whooped up on they got whooped up on by their. You know what I mean. You know it. It's been a long time.
It's been a long night
day.
for you. You were on. Yes, both the Democrats in New Jersey and Virginia won big, double digits big, much bigger margins than some expected.
Much bigger than expected. It was the Democrats who overperformed the polls there. The lessons are clear for Republicans. Saying that you're going to focus on affordability, say, we want to focus on affordability. What does that mean? I don't understand what they think that means. Democrats know what they think affordability means, which is free stuff. Zohran Mamdani in New York says, we're going to make life more affordable by controlling rent,
right,
and we're going to give you free stuff, and we're going to do all this stuff. That will lead to higher deficits and push up inflation and do all that stuff itself. But what do Republicans mean when they say we got to focus on affordability? I don't think they know what they're talking about. I really don't think that they may be ready to say that word. I don't think they really know what they're talking about.
Well, and then you had President Trump go on 60 Minutes this week to tell America there is no inflation. There is. You have, can Republicans stay in power by saying groceries are cheaper when they're not? Because, people might not follow the news and watch every night and read every day, but they know how much it costs when they go to Walmart and Kroger's every week.
Remember when the Biden White House put out the primer on how cheap your food was this year for 4th of July?
Yeah.
You can't tell people, you can't continue to tell people, actually, you're doing much better than you think. The pressure of inflation combined with tariffs, right? So we have too much monetary supply and we're restricting the inflow of goods, driving prices up there. People keep telling both of these parties, be normal. That's what the mandate from voters in cycle after cycle is. I wish somebody could be good at this. I wish somebody could do it. But instead, they win elections and they get in and they go too big, they overreach, and then voters say, I guess we got to go back to brand X again.
The National Republican Congressional Committee literally is already out today with an ad trying to make Zohran Mamdani the face of the Democratic Party. Take a look.
A radical left earthquake just hit America. The epicenter, New York. The new socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani, built his movement on defunding the police and abolishing ICE.
Now, Mamdani said in his acceptance speech last night that he's up for the fight. He directly addressed President Trump, telling him he has 4 words for him: turn the volume up. The fight is on right now, not only between Mamdani and Trump, but inside the Democratic Party for who is the leader and what their identity is.
There is a fight that's been simmering inside the Democratic Party since 2020, right? And it is who controls the future of the Democratic Party? Is it moderates like Sherrill and Spanberger? Or is it radicals like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Mamdani, and others? This is the fight that has been suppressed by the fear of Trump, right?
No
so
more.
They chose Biden in 2020. No more. And this is what we are getting ready to see is if young Democrats storm into these primaries and push their party over the cliff. Remember, in 2021, when Republicans had their good night 4 years ago today, well, it should have been great for them in the midterms next year. But what happened? They picked a bunch of weird candidates and they gave up the chance to get the gains that voters wanted to have them. There's a question for Democrats. Yeah, Republicans are going to use Mamdani against everybody and their cousin. The question for Democrats, though, is will they believe that radical, super progressive, democratic socialist candidates are the answer? And they may be in some places, but in most places, boring is what they need to win in the midterms.
Right. Okay, you referenced this in your first answer. I want to talk about this Supreme Court hearing today. They heard arguments on whether President Trump even has the legal authority to impose these sweeping tariffs he's already imposed. The majority of the court, even the conservative justices, seemed deeply skeptical that he does have this authority. The financial markets loved it. The stock market jumped. Trump has said these tariffs are life and death for him. That's a quote. What happens if the Supreme Court rules that he can't do this? We've already collected $90 billion in tariffs. do we have to give all that money back?
There are a lot of Republicans in Congress who hope that Donald Trump loses. There are a lot of them who are not willing themselves. Now, you're starting to see some Republicans in Congress in the Senate vote and say, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. But the House has a full blockade. They say they won't even talk about it until a year from now. They're not going to deal with any of this. The president has absolute authority in their minds. But they're all getting nervous because they're aware of how unpopular the tariffs are and the upward pressure on prices. They're hoping the Supreme Court bails them out, basically, and says, no, you can't do that. If the Supreme Court comes back and says, do what you want, that's going to be real tough for Republicans for next year. So I think a lot of them are hoping that they're quietly praying for a loss.
Yeah, big businesses in this country have managed to hold off raising prices because of tariffs, because they bought a lot of inventory early on when they knew the tariffs were coming. That's run out. They're about to start raising prices along with small businesses, which is we've already done that. So big economic implications on all of that. Chris Starwell, great to have you back on the show again tonight. Thank you.
Great to see you.
My next guest is a Republican congressman from South Carolina who is running for governor of his state next year. So what does last night's blue wave mean for his campaign, if anything? Republican Congressman Ralph Norman of South Carolina joins me now. Great to have you back on the show. First, your reaction to last night's election results. You just heard Chris Starwell there. He said it was a good old-fashioned whooping.
Well, Elizabeth, the way I would term it, it's a wake-up call for all Americans to have a socialist, Marxist socialist, a communist like Mamdani, take over a city that at one time was the Big Apple, where everybody went, people invested in it. And I would take issue with Chris a little bit because, I served with Spanberger. And I've served with Cheryl. They weren't as vocal as Mamdani, but they went along with a president who was, in Joe Biden, who was obviously not cognitively there. The policies that Joe Biden inflicted on this country, Donald Trump fixed in a short order. And
all of them? I think the problem is a lot of people are saying, polls are showing, and you can look at the approval ratings of President Trump on the economy and on tariffs, people are not happy, and including people in your state of South Carolina.
Well, I mean, with the tariff situation, people want fair trade. It was unfair the way the Biden administration let China get by with shipping whatever they wanted, anytime they wanted, and charging America, the tariffs. So people want fair trade. They want reciprocal trade. But no, Donald Trump, in a short order, he stopped the invasion at the border. He stopped Iran from...
Has he done enough to lower the price of things, in your opinion? Because the voters are saying by a majority he has not.
Well, I don't buy that. I think the fact that gas prices are down, we're mining our own gas, having our own gas now. Eggs are down.
Yeah.
Is it where we want it to be? No, but he made a start. And I think the 77 million that voted for Donald Trump realized that the last 4 years under Biden was a disaster at every level, from a security in America, from other countries, from the economic non-policies that he put in place. And the election last night, I do agree with Chris. It boils back to getting good candidates. One of my main jobs will be, when I become governor, I'm going to recruit great candidates who do what they say and who tell South Carolinians the truth and go to work.
So the last time we spoke, you had said that you would not be taking any of the pay, your own congressional pay, during this government shutdown.
Right.
You wrote at the time, while hardworking Americans are tightening their belts, Congress shouldn't be insulated from the very consequences it helped create. Why haven't more of your Republican or Democrat colleagues followed suit and donated their own pay, perhaps to some of the folks who are now having to go to food banks because they can't get food stamps or can't get paid for their federal jobs?
The fact that politicians get paid when they're not going to work defies everything.
Yeah.
I mean, defies everything. Any businessman, anybody that goes to work, you got to go to work and show up. We're not showing up for the last 35 days. We should not get a check. And that's why my amendment, I think we've got 16 people that 16 other congressmen have signed on to it. That's abysmal. But you have to ask them why. But if you don't go to work, you shouldn't get paid. It's that simple. And for the Democrats to do what they're doing is really an abomination to this whole country, and shows what they will do and define it as leverage, which is just a shakedown that's not going to work.
Yeah, your Republican colleague, Kevin Kiley, was just on the show saying Speaker Johnson needs to call you guys back into session. Why aren't you guys all in Washington, D.C., is his point. Do you agree with him?
Absolutely not. Once the Democrats...
You think you should stay home?
Well, we can't vote.
You can do other work.
No, the fact that it would send, not only we can't do anything until the Democrats sign the CR, send it back. The House has already done their work, Elizabeth. There's no reason for us to come back. And let the Democrats stop their outrageous demands, sign the CR as it is, which they did 13 times under Biden, and they're not doing that. But we'll see if they do it in the future.
All right, Congressman Ralph Norman, I know a lot of South Carolinians are really hurting hard with these food stamps that have not been funded by the federal government. I know you've got a big, big problem there with food banks running out of food. Really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Thank you,
pleasure.
sir. All right.
Thank you.
Meantime, in Virginia, Democrats won all the major races of the night, despite that shocking scandal involving its now brand new elected Attorney General. Democratic Congressman Suha Subramaniam from Virginia joins me now. First of all, I just want to get your reaction to Congressman Norman's remarks just now. Do you agree with him that there's absolutely nothing to do? And even though the government is shut down, is there other work you guys could be doing on Capitol Hill?
Well, all of a sudden in the past 12 hours, I'm starting to hear a lot of Republicans talking about lowering costs for Americans. That would be a great project to work on in a bipartisan way together. I have lots of different ideas, starting with getting rid of these tariffs, and as well as putting back into place consumer protections that this administration has ripped away, allowing utility companies and other monopolies to basically jack up costs unnecessarily. So there's a lot we can do. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and we should be meeting in Congress every day to talk about it and work on it. But instead, they've shut us out of Congress, and we should be negotiating an end to the shutdown. I talked to voters, Democrats and Republicans at the polls yesterday, all day in Virginia, in red precincts and blue precincts. They said the same thing. We want bipartisanship in Congress. We want people to work together and get things done. And we're not seeing that from this administration or from Republicans in Congress.
Yeah, we had an announcement today that 40 airports will be cutting flights by 10% if the shutdown continues under orders from the FAA, because they're having such an issue now with air traffic controllers not showing up to work enough. Perhaps they haven't been paid now for quite a long time. Any sign at all this shutdown is about to end? People are, I mean, they're running out of food in some states.
Yeah, you know, I've been at food pantries all across my region as well, and it's becoming a huge issue. A lot of people who never thought they'd even ever have to reach out to a food pantry now reaching out for help right now. And when you add on top of it, this administration not allowing SNAP to continue forcing states to essentially pick up the tab on that, it makes things really hard right now. But yeah, I want this shutdown to end more than anyone. The problem is Republicans had 6 months to negotiate with us in a bipartisan way to end this shutdown. Bipartisanship is not putting your idea in front of the other side and saying, take it or leave it.
Isn't that sort of what Democrats are doing, though? Are you're refusing to open the government until Republicans come to some agreement on these health care subsidies?
Oh, no, that's absolutely not true. We've been saying since March that we want to negotiate a bipartisan end. We don't want a shutdown. But what we've been told instead is that they would rather have a doubling and tripling of health care costs for families across the country. They would rather shut down the government instead of addressing that issue. And that's what was on the ballot last night in Virginia. Was certainly we had really great candidates in Virginia running, but it wasn't just about candidate quality. It was the fact that this administration has not taken the high costs of living seriously. It has not listened to the American people. Instead, you know, they're building grand golden ballrooms. Our governor in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, was traveling to Iowa and other states looking at his presidential race pretty much his entirety of his governorship. And so they were out of touch, and Republicans and Democrats alike showed up and voted against them. And so I think that's going to continue. And this wasn't an isolated incident. We've seen special elections all year saying the same thing. And so if Republicans want to actually listen to the American people, they'll come up with a bipartisan agreement with us. And what we're offering is very popular with the American people.
Okay.
We're talking about lowering costs of healthcare and many other things.
Well, I should point out, Republicans have said, many of them, they will absolutely negotiate on these subsidies, but first you have to open the government. So it just feels like you're both saying all we want to do is talk about extending subsidies, but you won't do it because of this one issue of opening up the government. And meanwhile, the people paying the price are the American people. Who fly, who need to eat.
But yeah, they've said that before and then gone back on their word. We don't trust them anymore. The reality is if they want to have the vote right now and then we'll continue this continuing resolution, we should do it. But I talked to the federal workers and contractors who are affected most, and they're saying that they're fed up with Republicans. And that's why we had federal contractors and federal workers in Virginia last night vote against Republicans and for Democrats.
Congressman Subramanian, thank you so much for coming on. You're always welcome to come back and make the case. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, coming up for us, Zohran Mamdani receives the most votes for a New York City mayor since 1969. And the race was called in just over half an hour. How did he do it? We'll speak to a writer for the Free Press who's been following his campaign from the very start and was there last night when he won. And then later, the death toll has risen to 12 people in that UPS plane crash in Louisville, Kentucky. What went wrong? An engine fell off as the plane took off? We're going to get into it in just a moment.
This Veterans Day, Leland Vittert goes inside the nation's most historic military academy and sits down with Bill O'Reilly to explore America's military legacy. America's Greatest Warriors, Tuesday at 10, 9 Central, only on NewsNation.
34-year-old mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani is young and by many standards inexperienced. That might not be a coincidence, then, that it's been said that successful socialist candidates are often young, since socialism is at heart an aspirational ideology. It's a platform for dreamers, basically. Plus, it's sometimes hard to find experienced socialist candidates with records to run on because everywhere socialism has actually been tried, it's failed. Mamdani certainly caught fire with younger voters. Early analysis shows 75% of them voted for Mamdani. His promises of free stuff like city-run grocery stores and no-fare bus rides resonated in one of the most expensive cities to live in America. Those who voted for Mamdani are more likely to rent or take public transportation. But the question for him, as it is with every elected leader, is can they deliver on all those really nice promises? Joining us now for more on all of this is Olivia Reingold, who is a writer at the Free Press. Okay, you have been covering Mamdani from the very, very start, when nobody had heard of this guy, and then you were there last night as he won. I mean, it's an inconceivable thing. America's biggest city, financial capital of the world, as I said earlier, economy bigger than Canada or Israel. This is a big deal.
Oh, it's a huge deal. And Mamdani and his supporters, they see this as so much bigger than New York. They are already talking about how can we recreate this success across America. They have, recently I reported for the Free Press, I looked at thousands of pages of internal documents for the Democratic Socialists of America, which Mamdani belongs to, and there were a lot of plans in there about how to maximize his success.
Is there any way? Does Mamdani work outside New York City? Does socialism? It really is, because it gets to the heart of the sort of battle right now going on in the Democratic Party.
Absolutely.
How does somebody like Zohran Mamdani work in Michigan or Kansas or Texas or Virginia?
Yeah, well, there was a similar style candidate in Minneapolis who was running for mayor, and he lost last night.
Precisely.
So it's not all wins, but I will say when you look at polling, registered Democrats, more than a majority, want to see new leadership in Congress. There's a lot of frustration with what's going on in D.C. My gut instinct is that nationally, there's not so much appetite for the social justice identity politics, but an economic populist. I mean, you just can't overstate how much anger there is about income inequality in America right now.
And that is not singular to New York City.
No,
you
no.
find that everywhere.
Absolutely. People in Houston, cities that were thought to be affordable just in the last 5 years after COVID. It's a problem everywhere. Every city you go and you read local news and, a place like Houston, and they are talking about how they have a housing crisis. Everywhere in America seems to be facing this.
Nobody can afford to live where they want to live or pay the rent or even buy a home, or there is no home for sale. The big question then will be, because it's not just for Zohran Mamdani, it's not just for New York City, and regardless of what our Republican congressman said in the first block, many people and people all over the world, businesses all over the world, still do invest and come to New York City. It's really not just the most important city in America. It could arguably be the most important city in the world. He's made these promises. I'm going to make it easier for you. I'm going to make it cheaper for you. I'm going to make it better for you. If he can't deliver, this is not good, not just for Zohran Mamdani, but for democratic socialism writ large.
I think it's possible. A few things. One, I will say, I just can't overstate how serious him and his movement are. You look at the transition team that was announced today. Lena Khan is on there, and she's not even leading it. She's just a member of a 5-person body.
Lena Khan was with the Biden administration and with the helping break up big companies and corporate
highly
monopolies.
Respected, a highly serious,
highly feared.
Yep, absolutely. So he, the power of the appointments he's already making within his transition team, he's choosing people that are quite serious. So I think,
and yet he had the fire commissioner for New York City resign today, in part because of his statements on Israel.
Right. There's absolutely tension brewing. I mean, you already saw that Trump, he released a statement, I think it was maybe within a half hour after Mamdani's win. And Mamdani, when he addressed supporters last night, don't mean to brag, I was in the crowd, worked on that invite for weeks. But Mamdani, he addressed Trump directly. He said, Trump, I know you're watching, not even if you're watching. So this is, they're gearing up for a showdown here, no doubt.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see about this fear of anti-Semitism, because overnight, on election night, swastikas were painted on a Brooklyn yeshiva.
I will say, I personally, I considered, should I take this Jewish star?
Your Star of David
off. I noticed a few people as I was interviewing them look at it, and you don't know what people think, because that is a space. There were Jews there, but they are staunchly anti-Zionist, and so the majority of Jews, they are Zionists, and they don't have a place
Zionist
in that movement.
Means believing Israel has a right to exist.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Olivia Reingold, you've had a long night after a long campaign. Good job covering that campaign with some very critical questions to Mamdani about how he's going to deliver on all these, what many see as pie in the sky promises. We shall see. All right, coming up for us. The son of a famous Iranian-American poet is arrested in New Jersey for his alleged connection to that Halloween terror plot in Michigan. Are other co-conspirators still on the loose? The FBI has made more arrests in the so-called Pumpkin Day terror plot. This was the alleged ISIS-linked plan to orchestrate a mass shooting in Michigan over Halloween weekend. The FBI says it thwarted it just in time. 2 New Jersey men have now been arrested and are reportedly in custody in connection with the attack. 19-year-old Tomas Khan Jimenez Guzal and 21-year-old Milo Sadarat. Both are from the very nice town of Montclair, New Jersey. Sources say Guzal was nabbed at Newark Airport. He was waiting for a getaway flight to Turkey. His final destination was reportedly Syria, where he planned to start training with ISIS. Sadarat was arrested at his father's home in Montclair. His father is a noted Iranian-American poet, Roger Sadarat. You see him here walking to court today. He is also a professor at Queens College in New York City. The 2 arrests come just days after 2 other men were charged with supplying weapons for the attack. Mohammed Ali and Majed Mahmoud were arrested after the FBI raided their Michigan homes and a storage unit that they had. The criminal complaint accuses the two of them of acquiring an arsenal of lethal weapons and tactical gear. That included shotguns, AR-15 style rifles, and more than 1,600 rounds of ammunition. The complaint also says they carefully scouted locations for the attack, settling on a strip of LGBTQ nightclubs in Detroit as targets. Chilling images released by the feds show the two suspects allegedly getting ready for the attack, buying the weapons, firing them at a shooting range in the weeks leading up to the foiled plot. A plot the DOJ says was inspired in part by the deadly terror attacks at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida in 2016, and the 2015 ISIS terror attack in Paris that killed 130 people. To help break all of this down, we're joined now by Chris Wecker, former FBI Assistant Director. Chris, this undercover police unit, apparently from the NYPD, had been monitoring one of these suspects for quite some time. He got spooked by the two arrests of his accomplices in Michigan and tried to leave earlier than expected. When the FBI found him, he was in the food court at Newark Airport.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was much more than just the FBI in Newark and the NYPD. I think the Joint Terrorism Task Forces in both Newark and Dearborn, Michigan, Detroit, Michigan were working together on this. This case started in 2024 when one of them was coming through immigration, and alert customs agent took his phone and looked at it and saw some searches that related to terrorist attacks. So I think this case has absolutely everything in it. It has wiretaps, it has an informant, it has physical surveillance over the course of 2 months between several different states, and it's got. I think the government their hand was forced twice, once because they were about to make an attack on Halloween, and the other when one of their subjects was about to jump a plane. So there may be other shoes to drop here. There's maybe much more to this. I don't think they were quite ready to make this arrest today.
Authorities say that he was on his way. The reason they did this so quickly was because he was on his way to Syria to train with ISIS. This is a young man from Montclair, New Jersey. He's just 19 years old.
2 19-year-olds and 2 20-year-olds involved in this plot so far that we know of. So yeah, it makes you wonder. Again, we've talked about this in the past, the long arm of ISIS or any terrorist organization reaching into people's homes and indoctrinating 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds. And here's this guy who's supposedly assimilated into the United States. His father's a poet, seemed to be well established in a very Tony neighborhood in New Jersey. And there's just no explaining this.
Yeah.
They'll have to do a post-mortem on this one, but it just shows you how quickly people can get radicalized and how powerful the internet is to do that.
Yeah, it's stunning, really, to radicalize them to not just commit violence, but also to get on a plane to fly to Syria to train to be in ISIS. Here's the thing that really stands out, though. These charging documents reveal there was another person in this ring. It was actually 5. Who was only 16 years old, and that this 16-year-old was the one who was the most enthusiastic about launching this attack, urging the other men that it was time to strike. There's one text message from him that read, I've got it, they call it the pumpkin attack. I gotta do the pumpkin for real. If I don't, I'm gonna slit my wrists. The fact that a 16-year-old would be so radicalized and be the one who was urging these older young men to also commit violence is quite striking.
It is striking. I mean, again, the internet is powerful, and these kids they live on their phones. They live in the internet. That becomes their reality, and so they soak it all up. If they're disaffected, if they have, there's something, they're going through something, or some mental issues, or emotional issues, or just plain being 16. And here comes someone to tell you, hey, it's not you, it's them. And all of a sudden he becomes a radicalized ISIS patriot. But I think besides this person, I think there's an informant in there as well who's made what we call consensual recordings. And so recordings that have been made of phone calls that he was privy to. So query whether that 16-year-old was the informant or became the informant at some point.
Yeah, it was interesting. The defense lawyer for one of the young men arrested said, this isn't evidence of anything. They were all just talking about video games. Hard to look at those messages and all that gear they found and just say, it's just a bunch of really armed to the teeth young men who are actually just talking about video games.
Yeah, it's interesting with Ali and Mahmoud. They had firearms, they had weapons, they had all the means and methods of conducting a terrorist attack.
Right.
The other two seem to be talkers, if you will, and planners, and they're part of it, but they seem to be. And one of them talks about going to Syria and may have been going on his way to Turkey and then on to Syria. But they hadn't taken any steps that we know of yet. I mean, I will say the FBI and the law enforcement agencies are playing this one very close to the vest for a change.
Yeah.
Because usually Kash Patel's out there out front spilling evidence in every direction. Not this time. So I think there's a lot more work to do here. I think this is, there's more to come.
Chris Wecker, I'm sure we'll be talking to you a lot in the coming days. Appreciate you coming on tonight. All right, coming up for us, 12 people are dead after a UPS plane crashed in Kentucky. We are now learning that the plane was 34 years old, had just had repairs, and when it took off, one of the engines fell off.
Holy holy came there dead.
That was the moment a massive fireball erupted over Muhammad Ali Airport in Louisville, Kentucky. A UPS cargo plane crashed shortly after takeoff yesterday, killing 12 people, including a child. Video obtained by NewsNation shows the FBI on the scene today. We see them combing through debris on the tarmac, placing evidence into collection bags. And then there is the satellite image, which shows a 100-yard gash on the roof of a UPS warehouse at the end of the runway, caused by the jet as it came crashing down. Another satellite image shows a large path of debris along half a mile, with the plane destroying everything on the ground that was in its way. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy addressed the crash this afternoon and stressed that it was caused by a mechanical issue.
This was not an air traffic control issue. It appears that it was a mechanical issue. Everyone's been clear on that. That is not speculation.
It is definitely mechanical. The plane was several decades old, and most critically, an engine fell off as the plane took off. NewsNation's Alex Capriello was on the scene. Alex, I know they have found the black box recorders. The aircraft's left engine fell off as it was taxiing and taking off, and that's what caused those flames that we saw on the wing of the plane prior to the crash.
Yeah, and in a very unbelievable moment for live TV, we actually have pieces of this aircraft that are being paraded right there behind us. It's almost as if this is our first glimpse, really, of the wreckage. It's really dark right now, but in fact, some of it's really lit up by these lights of these first responder vehicles. But you could see that part of that engine actually being transported on these big rigs away from this crash site, away from this tarmac, presumably to some sort of airport hangar where the NTSB can continue their investigations. But you are right about the black box and the data recorder, because those are critical finds when it comes to this investigation and what actually comes of this actual NTSB team that is here looking at it, because they're going to be examining what was happening inside that cockpit in the seconds before this doomed crash actually occurred. As for the other debris left behind, we're actually told it's scattered among the homes and the neighborhoods in this Louisville area. The NTSB is asking any family that might venture into their backyard and see a piece of an aircraft that doesn't belong there to actually call them in, phone them in, so that way they can add it to their investigative process.
Right.
Just moments ago, the death toll rose to 12. We are told that that also includes one child as well. The coroner's office out here for the last 24 hours attempting to sift through the rubble and find more of those bodies. It is no longer a search and rescue, but now a recovery effort. The mayor, the governor, as well as other congressmen actually touring that destruction, saying they've never seen anything like that before. Take a listen.
What this scene is violent. Where the plane hit, at best, is destroyed. What you see are mangled remnants of what was in its path, completely burnt and blackened.
And the NTSB, of course, is going to continue their investigating for as long as it takes. However, typically it takes about 30 days for them to issue their preliminary report. Elizabeth?
And do we know, very quickly, Alex, was there any kind of mayday call from the pilot to air traffic control as he realized, an engine fell off?
So essentially, when we had that NTSB press conference, that was just moments before his investigative team let them know that they found that data recorder in that black box. So the NTSB, at least on the record, has not told us whether or not they've actually heard it, but that's not something that they typically share, at least the audio recordings, although they will share essentially what their findings are at a later date.
All right, Alex Capriello, live for us in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you so much. Really sad story. All right, coming up, we're going to go back to our top story. What do last night's election results mean for both Democrats and Republicans, and mostly for you? Chris Cuomo joins me live to discuss next. All right, Chris Cuomo and I are still talking elections in the commercial break. As we said last night, it's always the stuff we say in commercial break is always the most interesting. You're going to talk to conservative commentator Ben Shapiro and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna about last night's election. I'm sure their takes will be very different, but obviously the big question is, what does it mean? Does it mean anything ahead of the midterms?
I got to tell you, so I'm walking around New York City today. I don't live in the city, as you know. I live out east. But so I'm walking around the city, seeing my mom, walking her around, seeing Andrew, and I've never seen after an election, even a divisive one, and we've had divisive elections before, so many people who are elated and so many people who are horrified.
Yeah.
And that kind of bubbling a little bit on the surface of like you with your shirt, you with the, so it is a tense time, but I think the tension is the currency. It's not like it usually is where you and I say what we say, and then when it's over, everybody comes together. There is no interest in unity. This is about good and evil, okay? Not right and left.
That's a big delta between the two. All right, look forward to seeing what you got on the show.
Elizabeth, even when it's not my favorite kind of history, it is great to share moments of history with you. I love doing the job with you. Thank you for being my partner.
That was great.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.